Hi everyone, welcome to another bonus Yuletide Musings video. So this is a natural follow-on, I suppose, from the previous video I've recorded, which I've titled up I Liked It So Much I Bought the Album, because I suppose you could think of it as another music discovery type video. But this one is another one that brings a big smile to my face when I think back to the time when I first became aware of this, whenever you call it a series. So just to put this into perspective and the environment. So around about 84 to 85, I had started again going to a lot of gigs, particularly gigs in Brighton. I was going to a lot of gigs on my own because a lot of my friends weren't particularly interested in the bands I was listening to, but I really wanted to go. Also, what was also interesting, I suppose, in terms of just the background to all of this, is when I wasn't going to gigs, and I went to about, I suppose 2 gigs a month was about what I could manage. But when I wasn't going down to Brighton to check out bands, what I was doing is hanging out in a local pub with quite a wide group of friends. I consider myself to be, I suppose, what you would call a social introvert. So I tend to find myself in social situations where I quite enjoy, going out with like 1-2 other people and just hanging around, talking about different things and just doing stuff with that small group of people. But at that point, it was quite nice because I had this quite wide group of friends, and so we'd meet up in the same pub in Forest Row on like a Friday evening or a Saturday evening, and then sort of go take it from there. Either go clubbing or just hang about and then go home or go back to someone's house, those sort of things. So in that environment, I'd often find myself coming back from the pub in pretty good spirits with the munchies, maybe with a friend in tow, maybe not, and often come in, and while I'm sort of making myself toasty, would switch on the TV and just see what's on. Sometimes I'd have maybe a video or DVD that I'd rented to watch, but a lot of times I just switch on, see what was on. And so we're talking about 11:30 at night, and I stumbled across something called so with these, and I'll type them up appropriately, but the series I think initially was called Live in London, but what was bizarre is the initial ident of the programme, like when they all had this same theme tune, which if you watch these videos you'll see what it is, but it was actually badged up Live from London. So when these are re-shown occasionally on whatever it was, I don't know if it was the BBC or ITV or Channel 4, but when they're re-shown, I've found that they're either badged up either way, like Live from London or Live in London. And most of these were originally broadcast, as you can see from this one, in 84, but there's one in here from 85. So I've collected together sort of 6 of my favourites that bring a smile to my face. Now, of course, a lot of people might consider these to be quite humorous in some respects, but certainly it was indicative of the sort of stuff I was listening to at the time. So we've got the sort of tail end of Nawubum and bands that weren't necessarily from the UK, but were still, riding the wave of Nawubum. But also you've got a lot of interesting sort of post-punk bands that were maybe a bit inspired by glam. We've also got glam metal as well. So this is some interesting ones to maybe go through and watch. The picture quality on these isn't great because it looks like they probably have been ripped from VHS or something like that. But I rediscovered these the other day when I was looking up the Wrathchild one, and it did bring a smile to my face. So I thought that would be a good video to do around this time of year. So again, gonna not do mid-rolls on this, to just be ads at the start of the finish of these, because as I've said before, if I don't include start and finish ads anyway, YouTube will probably run them, so why not? Might as well make a small amount of money out of these. So yeah, the first up, and probably one of my favourites, and I can't remember when I came back what I stumbled across first. Over time, what happened was I started putting the video recorder on before I went out, and then it would automatically record it when I got back, regardless of whether I was watching it or not, or when it came on. And this one I did have on video, so I must have stumbled across the series before that, because of course the first one I would have watched, I wouldn't have necessarily had a video to hand maybe to record it, but this was an early one. And yeah, this one was actually, I can sort of remember the circumstances, because I often would go up to a pub slightly further afield, which I'd walk up to several miles away actually, and meet a friend there and then walk back afterwards. And this was one that I watched after walking back from an outing, and I think it was a place called the Three Crowns, which would have been in, yeah, I'm trying to remember the name of the little village. There's a village between Forest Row and East Grinstead, and the name escapes me, and I had several friends that lived there, so yeah. But yeah, Three Crowns was an awesome pub. So yeah, Rock Godess 1984, live in London. They're a 3-piece. I'll include links to these bands as well on Wikipedia, which I'll include in the description under useful links. They did reform a couple of times. Yeah, so the lineup for this is actually, currently, so it's tends to be always these sisters, Jodie and Julie. I think Julie is the younger sister of the two, and then the first incarnation, or the first time I was aware of them, was with Tracy Lamb as the bass player, and then for this live gig, it's actually Dee O'Malley playing bass. Another band that cropped up, who I was already familiar with, was Girls' School, and they seem to be appearing on quite a number of sort of live programs that were going out around that time. So there was the Tube, but there was also a series on called ECT, which was earlier on a Friday, and I'd often watch that before I went out to the pub, and they had been on that. And at this point, they're a slightly different lineup than the original one. Was it Kelly, the guitarist, wasn't in the band at this point. It's a different guitarist, or different second guitarist. So actually, let me just bring up band members to remind myself. So yeah, the person you can sort of see there in the foreground is Kim. Whoops, there. And around that time, have we got a timeline maybe? So we can just see. Oh, there we go. So what are we talking about? Yeah, around here. Oh, Tracy Lamb was actually in Girls' School. I keep forgetting that for quite a period of time. So when I got into Girls' School, it was this lineup, which I suppose considered to be my sort of classic lineup. So first couple of albums, and then I did buy the third album, which had Jill Weston on it in there, but I wasn't really keeping up. So by the time this is recorded, yeah, this is Chris is in the band. Kelly Johnson left and then rejoined, and then sadly passed away in the 2000s. Yeah, so I love the early stuff like Demolition and Hit and Run. Some of my favourite albums. And this band, so 84, Wrathchild were kicking around. They've been around for quite a while. Another one that was sort of riding off of Nwubbum, but there were a number of glam, like metal stroke glam bands in the UK that bubbled up, and Wrathchild were one of them. There's a number of quite amusing stage props that they use, and definitely seeing this brought a smile to my face. A bit of a sort of harder edged glam metal band than maybe the sort of stuff that was, coming out in the US around that time. Some of it, it's very much in the mould of UK glam in terms of the sort of song material, but it has that slightly abrasive, punky sound to it. This is in similar ways that if you listen to the first Motley Crue album, it's quite punky. And then this fella, Thor, so fellow Canadian. Most of the live from London gigs were recorded at either, I think, the Camden Palace, or Marquee Club. And as part of his show, he'd do this sort of muscle man act as well. So things like blowing up hot water bottles. You can see he's got his protective eye goggles here so he doesn't blow his eyeballs out. Very amusing gig. Lots of different like strength things that he does in the course of delivering some metal. Very entertaining. If a little cliched, but very much of its time, and probably well overdue for a resurgence here as well. 8 months ago. Oh look, 71 now. Put on a killer show. There you go. So still doing the rounds. And then a couple of more sort of post-punky bands. These, I suppose, were a supergroup because they've got, Stiv Bators in them. Yeah, Lords of the New Church, in case you haven't guessed. So Stiv Bators, Brian James. Yeah. I nearly went to see them. I don't know why I never got to see them. They did play in Brighton one time. I must have missed them, or maybe I ran out of money. But yeah, around 85, I think they played down in Brighton, and I just never got to see them. I'm rather sad about that because I really liked the band. So did my middle brother, and they had a couple of albums actually by them. Lords of the New Church, and of course in terms of the bands they were previously in. So Stiv Bators was in the Dead Boys. Brian James had previously been in the Damned. Dave Trigana had been in Sham 69. And Nick Turner, different Nick Turner from the guy in Hawkwind, not the same guy. So this Nick Turner had been in the Barracudas. Yeah. Melodic and slick, punk. One of their tracks does actually turn up on the, Teen Wolf soundtrack, I think. I can't remember which one it is. Might be Method to Our Madness. And then this band, Flesh For Lulu, they're from the UK. And I discovered them as a result, I think, of watching, or got into them as a result of watching this. This is in 1985, so it would sort of span from 84 to about 85 and then was repeated. And what category does it put those in? So, there's elements of goth in there, post-punk. as I suppose as a result of listening to this band, it did make me want to listen to more sort of bit rock and rolly, rockabilly, what do they call it? Like, you know, the bands that combine goth with rockabilly. I'm trying to think of the band now, but this led me down that rabbit hole when I went out and bought one of their albums as a result of, well, I first probably became aware of their name, and then I finally saw them on live in London. And then we got a few honourable mentions at the end. So these aren't live from London broadcasts, but they're, 84 onwards, there was a lot of stuff that turned up on Channel 4, on the BBC, in various guises, either through the Tube or live from London or ECT and various other things. A lot of stuff would also go out mid-evening randomly. So there's 3 of my favourites here, one of which actually went out on New Year's Eve 84 into 85. So I set my video recorder up to record this, and then when I came back on New Year's Eve from being down the pub, it's still going on, so I watched the sort of tail end of it. So this Big Country Edinburgh Playhouse, I think it was a bit of a tradition with them to play a New Year's Eve gig in Edinburgh, but this is a particularly one that really I just remember, and I could also at one point like remember in my head like verbatim because I watched it so many times. So that's another favourite, not a live from London one I hasten to add, but I wanted to do a few additional ones that I thought really cool over the years. This one from 85 cropped up one evening. I can't remember where it was shown, and it was just after Razzle, the drummer, had sadly died. And I think at this point they were using the guy from The Clash. Was it Topper Headon, maybe? I don't know if I got that right, but there's certainly an ex-Clash drummer was playing for them in the interim. So yeah, really good version of Million Miles Away, which is one of my favourite tracks by the band. At that point, I had bought the album, which I think has got Up Around the Bend on it and Million Miles Away, so I was aware of them, but didn't really infill their albums until a lot later. And then finally from 88, there was a show went out. I'm assuming it was a censored version. Again, I can't remember if it was on the BBC or Channel 4 or ITV, of this one, Guns N' Roses Live at the Ritz, 1988. Very svelte looking band members back then. And Slash with the customary cigarette hanging out of his mouth. So you're getting sort of what I consider to be like classic lineup for Guns N' Roses as well. So what I'll remember to do is I'll include some wiki links for Big Country, Hanoi Rocks and Guns N' Roses as well, just for reference. So thanks once again for watching. Bye for now, and I will catch you in a future episode.